YouTube channel.
Thank you.
Martha, Abner, how about you quickly just put on your camera and introduce yourself quite briefly?
So good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Martha, and I'm from Namibia, and I'm also a current Chevening scholar at the University of Lancaster. I'm up north in England, and yes, I'm excited to spend the day with all of you guys. Thank you, Mavis.
Okay, Martha, thank you. Martha and I are both from Namibia, and we're both current Chevening scholars. I am from Sussex University. I am studying globalization, business, and development, which in essence is just international trade. And today we're here to just basically facilitate the process of getting you prepared for your interview. I'd like you to please note that we're going to have quite brief sessions done by the speakers, but in essence, the most important part of this workshop is when we go into breakout rooms to allow you to actually speak to the speakers and ask personalized questions that are relevant to your process of preparing yourself for your interview. So just be cognizant of the fact that after each speaker talks, there will be a brief Q&A session. Should you be too shy to post that in the chat, that's fine. You can do that in the workshop, but I do urge you to please just make sure that you ask the questions as we go, because they could be relevant to the next person. There's no such thing as a silly question, because you never know, because somebody else in the room might be thinking the same thing and wondering, you know, what is this and what is that? So this is really just to get you as prepared as possible. But we must say as a side note, we can't give you everything on a silver platter. So we can't necessarily truly give you everything you need to know for the session, although we'll do our best to make sure. But at the end of the day, there also has to be an element of ensuring that you get yourself to the next stage, because you need to possess the qualities that they are looking for in the Shrivening Alumni network. So with no further ado, I would like to welcome on stage Naomi Boyce. She is the British High Commissioner Chevening Officer in Namibia, and she will be giving you an overview of just the entire interview process, after which we as the speakers will then go into the process of sort of workshopping each question in accordance to your essays. And then in the workshops, which is in the breakout rooms, we will then delve a bit deeper on a more personalized note in accordance to the questions that you have. So Naomi, please take the floor.
Hi, everyone. If you cannot hear me, please just put it in the comments so that we know. At some point, I may turn off the my video if my bandwidth does not work with me. But other than that, I'll have the video up, because I mean, technology these days, you can actually do video as well as the presentation screen, so it's fantastic. So I am Naomi from Namibia, and I am the Chevening Officer here in Namibia, as Mavis has said, and I work with the British High Commission. It's been an interesting ride, and I'm happy to be here with you today. So let's move on to this section. Next slide, Mavis. Welcome to the Chevening Interview one-on-one session. This is the start of your journey to preparing for the interview process. You're going to hear me refer to it as the interview because I am trying to intimidate you, but no, not really. I just like the concept, the interview. My phone just almost fell. All right, so let's get into this. First and foremost, I'd like to say thank you to Mavis and Jessica and Mubita in advance for inviting me to be part of this session. Really, really an honor to be part of what you guys are doing here. And Martha, it's an honor to be part of what you guys are doing here. I will not take up the entire session. I will only be here for my slot. And so without taking up too much time, let's get into this. It's going to be about 120 minutes, 2 hours for the entire session. I have a portion of that. So first and foremost, I am trusting that everyone or most of you have already been invited to interview and have been successful to this point. So in the comment section, can I just, if maybe we might have some people who just logged on, but I just want to know how many we are on the call that are invited to interview. And then let's just do that quickly, and then we check the section. Just put yes or why, yeah, or even a hands up thingy. Thanks, Nana. Right, good stuff. Okay, nice. Okay, that's good. Just keep popping them in. I'm just going to carry on. Thanks, Vino. I see your hand up. And then there's somebody called iPhone whose hand is also up. All right, we're going to move on. And I'm going to say, as is on screen, congratulations, you have made it this far. And you know what, those nerves and am I going to make it? Am I good enough? Am I not good enough? Am I da-da-da-da? It's a competitive process, but just to give yourself a hands up, you have made it this far. So please, first step from this point onwards, congratulations, well done. You did good. You did good. So now you are part of the Chevening process. And you don't know what to do to get yourself ready for the interview, maybe, and that's why we're here. That's okay. The process, this is where we're heading to. All right. I put here, actually, maybe I should say it so that you guys can also feel a little bit more pumped up about it. This past season actually had one of the biggest application intakes, like the biggest applications that Chevening has ever seen from across the globe. So when you have been invited to interview, please understand, you have been chosen among hundreds from your specific country and thousands from across the globe. Thousands from across the globe. That's where you stand, and this is where you are now. So please, 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 please understand where you are now. Understand it's a competitive process. All right? You've been chosen. Now what? The process. Now, first and foremost, take a quick breath, then celebrate. Give yourself a little tap on your shoulder, do a little jiggy, do a little dance, praise God, have your moment, take yourself out to dinner, you know, make it a situation, because this is a world-class scholarship award and you have come to this point. You may not have it yet, but you've come to this point. So take a breath and appreciate the fact that all the hard work you put into your application has come to fruition. All right, so this is the first step. Now you have to move on to the second step. What does that entail? All right, so second step is preparing yourself for the interview. The deadline, some of you would have seen the deadline. I hope all of you would have seen that actually. The deadline for your documents was the 22nd of February. And this is all your required documentation, your qualifications, your transcripts, your references, etc., etc., etc. All right, so Mavis, I can't quite see what's going on in the comment section because I've got notes here on the side. So if there's any immediate questions, or Jessica, if there's any immediate questions, please just interrupt me and say there's a question, or we can do that at another point. It's up to you. Just you direct me whichever way. I'm just going to keep talking whichever way. All right. So if you found that you didn't manage to upload all of your documents on the 22nd of February, don't panic. It's okay. Take a breather. Go back to your email, your invited to interview email, and go check in your email. Read it very carefully. What tends to happen is we get excited. I've received the interview email, oh gosh, and then you don't read every single part of it. So please take a moment to read every single part of the email. It will tell you that if you have not uploaded your references or any specific document, if you did not manage to do it by the due date, you can still and should bring it to the interview. When the interviewer or the Chevening officer or whomever asks you for your documents, that's the time in which you hand them over. Don't come in and just start giving things, but just wait and be patient. It will happen. So you don't have to panic if you haven't been able to upload them. Bring them with you to the interview. All right, that's all the extra documents that Chevening has asked for. Now, please make it a point to prepare your documents, and then part of the email also says book your interview. So please, guys, book your interview already. Don't wait until 2 days before. Don't wait until the last minute. Book your interview now, have it set in your calendar, and work towards that date. All right. That means that if it's happening in a month's time, then you know that you've got at least about 4 to 5 weeks within which to prepare for your interview, so that you're not doing everything all at once. You can calm yourself. You've got time to prepare. You do everything that you need to. The guys will go into what it is that you need to do in terms of each section or whatever. I'm just here on the process. All right, so book your interview. You should have received the instructions in that email, so please pay attention to the email again. I will repeat because it may sound like duh, but the thing is we do get excited and sometimes we don't read every single word. And some of the instructions that have you panicking, or some of the instructions are in there, whereas you didn't read it and then you're panicking. You're like, oh my gosh, I didn't manage to upload. Oh gosh, how do I book? How do I work the system? It's okay. All right, then you booked. You booked now, you're all sorted out. Now, this is something that Mavis said that I should emphasize as much as possible, because it's not something you're quite aware of. And once you get to the interview stage, you've got a really short time frame within which to make this happen. Please, if you have not applied to universities, please do so as quickly as possible. If you have not even thought beyond, like you say, you want to wait till interview, don't do that. Apply to your interviews, to your universities, apply to your universities, get that application in, do the work that is needed if you haven't already. If you have, good on you. If you haven't received a response by now, also chase them up, contact them, get in touch with them, find out what's happening. You can do that. They have resources and they have people that you can get in touch with. The international officers, for instance, or the international relations officers. Each university has a specific person to deal with international students, to deal with international queries, application queries. So please check on their websites and find out who that is. Talk to them. Have a connection and a link to the universities, not just one, but all 3 universities that you're applying for, and be in touch with them now already. You will not regret it, because by the time, should you be successful in the next process, by the time you get to university, you would be so surprised how that contact is the one that helps you settle in the most. All right, so please, 3 different universities, 3 subject matters. Okay, cool. You may say that, oh, I've sent through my application already, but there's still the interview and we can still make life very interesting for you. All right, get on it without delay. And if you haven't received any offers by now, again, chase it up. If you have, congratulations, well done. You can take that one off your list. Then the English language test. So to clarify, Chevening does not require an English language test result. That has been taken off. However, your universities will require that for your application. And so some of you may get conditional offers depending on which country you come from, or you will get unconditional offers, whichever one. But your university should have its own criteria on the English language test, which you will need to comply with. Again, do not wait until another time. Do not wait until after the interviews in order to do this. Actually, because you've already been invited to interview, you are in the perfect space for you to do that. But don't stress yourself out and try and get it done before the interview. It's okay. You know your system, you know yourself best. You have until the 15th of July in which to comply with that English language requirement. That's with your application process with Chevening. With your universities, it may be different. So just keep that in mind and make sure to find out. Moving on. Okay, you've done all of the above and are just waiting for the interview to come around. What to do next? Number 1, please ensure to read up about what you need to be aware of before the interview. So this type of a session is perfect for you. You get this information now, you go and you start preparing. What is required of you, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's online, how to, what is it that you need to know, how to read up, etc., etc. So the process from my side will be, I'm telling you, like we're sitting here. And I am very appreciative of the fact that Mavis and Jessica and Light, who I was able to see, and Martha, they all look presentable. you would be surprised that even in an interview, because we've done it online, people have decided that they are going to look très casual chic, and it doesn't translate well, especially online. It really doesn't translate well. If you're coming online, and excuse me for this, but I just have to show you, like, firstly, you're on your camera phone, and then it's like up in your face, and then you're like slouching, and this is what we see. And you're in an interview, it doesn't give a particularly good image. So I apologize for that. I just visual basic. It doesn't give a good image. So please, we don't require you to go do your hair in fancy do's, go buy a ball gown, or even wear a full suit. If you want to, that's up to you. But just look presentable. Make sure that what we see of you is your best self. All right? Make sure that what we hear of you is your best self as well. That brings me to the actual layout. So some of you may be invited to online interviews. Some of you may be invited to face-to-face interviews. Either way, please be aware of how you address and how you speak and how you present yourself. You are your own ambassador at this point in time, and we're here to see the country of Light, the country of Jessica, and the country of Mavis. And in that instance, it's up to you to sell yourself. We don't want you to blabber on about every single thing on the planet. The guys will take you through how to be concise, how to be, right, how to set it before the panel. But please just practice ahead of time so that you know what it is that you want to say, and be aware that everything that you put out there, we are being, we pick up. You're not being judged negatively for it. We want you to be yourself. We want you to be your very best self and your very lovely self. All right. So to finalize that one and to close up, for those that are going to be online, I feel I should tell you this just because it's something we experienced last year. Please make sure that you've got a good broadband network, or at least try and make sure to have everything else off if you're going to be doing the interview at that time. So make sure you've got a good broadband network, make sure you are in good lighting, make sure you are in a quiet room and there's not too much human traffic in the area, that we don't hear other voices in the conversation. And then if you want to be a little bit more prepared, make sure to have some earphones with you. It also helps you and helps the interview process. If your hearing is not so good, or if the sound quality is not so good, just set yourself up with some earphones right next to you. So I'm pretty much done. The last thing that I would like to say is this is the most important part of your application process, as the last sifting process of everything. So please keep in mind to put your best foot forward, to put your best face forward, brush your teeth, put on some Vaseline on your teeth and your lips, no, not on your teeth, but on your lips, and just come in there to shine, be your best self. Lastly, remember again, you made it this far. You can make it further. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Naomi. I love your sense of humor. You're amazing. Thank you so much. And I love the fact that you were able to just give a holistic overview and understanding of, what is expected of you before we actually delve into the questions. So thank you for that. We do have a few questions for you in the chat section, but courtesy of time, I would ask that you please just stay with us and answer some of the questions in the chat section. Else we run over time a little bit, but thank you so much, Naomi. I really appreciate you taking your time out to be with us today. Thank you. One of the things that we do have to mention, because without her, we wouldn't be able to do all of this so smoothly. We do have Light. She is a scholar here at Sussex University, and she is from Kenya. And she makes amazing chapatis, I would like to believe. So Light, kindly introduce yourself to the room before we do move on.
Thank you, Mavis. Thank you, Naomi. That was really brilliant. Yeah, my name is Light Juma. I'm Shrivening scholar. I'm doing my MA in Media Practice for Development and Social Change at the University of Sussex. And I'm from Kenya, and I can see there's some Kenyans. So it's really a pleasure to be here and to just support this process. Thank you.
No, thank you. So Elias is my co-host. She's the one that is facilitating the processes in the chat, as well as just making sure that everything is running smoothly. So she is ultimately the coordinator. So Elias, thank you so much for being with us. I look forward to having you in the next 101 as one of our speakers. So with no further ado, Martha Abner, can you please take the floor and take it away? You will be our second speaker in essence.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Martha.
Thank you. And yes, thank you, Naomi, for sharing the general overview of the interview. I feel it was very insightful. And I'm also sure the candidates that are here really took a lot from you, especially the best self. It's about bringing your best self and being strategy student this year at Lancaster University. I would like to share a strategy that you can utilize in your interview when it comes to the leadership question, because that's what I'll be doing. Now, when it comes to the leadership essay, it is important to note that Chevening is not going to ask you anything outside your essays. Basically, that is what is going to form the background of what it is that they are looking for. And the reason why you've been shortlisted is because they were impressed by your application. So please just keep that in mind to say that, okay, these were my thoughts, or these were my stories that I told, and Chevening saw it fit that it is what they are looking for. So let me just go out there and go give my best self, taking into consideration what I've written down in my essay. So what do you need to do and why should you do it? That's how I framed it, because I want you to understand that this leadership essay is something that is very critical in your application, because Chevening is looking for future leaders and influencers in their home country. So it means that you need to be able to demonstrate that you are a leader, that you have led or you have influence in one way or another. And then you need to demonstrate it in the way that the panel can connect with you. So what is really, really important is that first you need to review your application. Review that application of yours and just understand what you wrote. I'm not saying go memorize it, because you cannot come there and now you are memorizing your whole application or the stories that you have told, because then there's no connection. But if you understand your application and you have reviewed it, you are able to inspire, because we are saying the leaders, they do not impress, they inspire. So you want the panel to be inspired when you are there about the stories that you have written down. And one of the ways that you can inspire is obviously by defining what leadership means to you. It is very important that you know that to you as an individual, sorry, what does leadership really mean to you? Not in terms of what you have had or what you have experienced, but just to say, like, personally, I define leadership as this, or like, this is how I connect to leadership, or this is how I've experienced leadership, and I feel this is the type of leadership that I want to define, to accompany myself to going forward. So then have that definition of leadership, and then obviously then you have to demonstrate it. And I believe you have already done that in your Chevening essays, because I don't think you make it to the interview section without having defined and demonstrated what leadership is. All I would like to urge you is that once you go into the interview, it is important that you just choose two or three, one or two examples from what you have written down to really understand what it is and to be able to go and explain further. Because the question would normally come as maybe, tell us about a leader that inspires you, or what does leadership means to you? And yes, they can use different ways of assessing this question. But if you have, you have two or three stories, one or two stories that you understand from your application, it's easier for you to then now explain this leadership question. Now, what I want to also just add is that what is important is, let me say, when someone says, tell us about a leader that inspires you. Now, you don't go there and you are bragging about, yes, Barack Obama did this, and yes, Nelson Mandela did this. No, it is important that you look at the skills that these people had, and how they embodied them and how you went on to embody those skills. Because then that means that you are creating a theme where you know that you are talking about something that you can relate on a personal level as well. And also what I would like to also encourage is that create a theme, like from your leadership essay already when you're answering that, up until your career, until your whole interview, let there be that common theme that people remember you, because it's easier, because when you're out of the room, people need to remember you by something. And if you have that one common theme that came out, maybe it's the way you define, they'll be like, oh, this is the authenticity leadership girl, you know, or something. It's like they remember that, because you need to create a theme where they can remember you for who you are when you are not in the room. That's why it's important to create that theme that must transcend in all your answers or something. And yes, what they're looking for is really passion, purpose, confidence, and consistency. So just remember that you can do this, especially if you have defined and you have demonstrated what leadership is. Now, there was a question in the chat that says, how do I distinguish myself from being achieving, from the other achieving applicants? Already, before you even got onto this platform, your story that you've told is distinguishing you from all the other applicants. But it's how you go and tell your story that will determine if you're going to distinguish yourself. Now, I always say use the STAR approach. When I'm talking about the STAR approach, I'm referring to talk about a situation, the task, your action, and what resulted from that situation. So that's how you tell a story in a logical and more comprehensive structure. So when you do this, it's easier because your story is already unique. So if you can convey it and, you know, portray it in such a way, amplify it, then you have already portrayed your best self. So please just be cognizant of the fact that when I'm telling a story, especially in demonstrating something, in any interview where you go, if you need to demonstrate, it's always advisable that you use a STAR approach, because you don't forget anything. In the STAR approach, you can put in everything that you're supposed to put in, because you'll talk about your situation, what it is that you did, what was expected of you, and what resulted from that. And that way you don't leave anything hanging. Like, yeah, and then I ended up, what is it? And then I ended up submitting my application. But if you submitted the application, what happened after the application? What did it do to you, you know? So those are the type of things that the STAR approach helps you with, especially in terms of being clear and concise. Remain authentic and be realistic. Now, I always say that if you want to get something because of who you are, and it's very important that at the interview stage, you are really authentic, because the panel will pick up on it. If you are exaggerating something, if you are telling them something that is not true. And believe you me, being an HR practitioner, I know when someone is telling you the truth and when someone is not telling you the truth. So it's important that you always choose to tell the truth, no matter what. It's okay. Because then you know, if I end up getting this interview, is really because of who I am, regardless of what I got, what I did. So just remain authentic and be realistic. This helps you obviously to just show how you have impacted people and how you did it. And finally, when it comes to answering any of the questions, or basically the leadership essay, I want to emphasize on taking your time to explain your thoughts or answers, or just asking them to repeat or explain if you do not get the questions. Why this is important is because you have probably 20 minutes, if not less, to really demonstrate that you are achieving potential. You are one of the you can be a Chevener. So you can only do that by communicating or speaking, whether you're going to do it virtually or in person. It's important that when you speak, you know, like when some of us speak, we go like and then obviously the panel is going to get lost, because you're going to have ums and ahs a lot. And what I normally would do is that if I feel like I have a lot of ums and ahs, I will pause. Like if I feel like I'm going to say I will not say I'll just pause. And when you pause, you arrange your thoughts and then you continue. And the person does not lose what you were saying. So it's just very important that you do that in order to showcase your personality as a leader, and also just obviously to remain curious and just put your best foot out there and just inspire this panel, because you can do it if you've done your Chevening essays this far. Next, please, Mavis. Yes, and finally, it's just to say, we should never forget what Chevening is looking for. Remember that they are looking for individuals who will be future leaders and influencers in their home countries. And already you are one of them. It's just that you now need to go and obviously bring out your best self. It is important to own your story. Those stories that you have written down, own them. Have mock interviews to increase confidence. This is very important because you need to do as many mock interviews as you can, but also not so much that you sound like a radio, you sound rehearsed at the time when you get to the interview. It must still remain natural, but you're just doing these mock interviews to obviously give you the floor, to also help you improve in terms of posture, how you are pitching, how you are communicating, or how you are coming across. And also, even just in front of your mirror, if you don't get something, it just helps you increase confidence, because unfortunately, confidence must come with you 110%, because that is the one thing that will really sell you. If you are maybe forgetting some of your things, but if you have the confidence, they'll be able to pick up that, okay, this person is really confident and can really do this, and we believe they can usher this masters to success, and they'll come and implement back home. Do not memorize your answers, know them, because you wrote those essays. So know them, it's your story, connect to them, personalize it. And that is how you distinguish yourself from everyone else. Obviously, yes, project your voice in a clear and concise manner, be authentic. And finally, this is very important. Manage your time. Manage your time in such a way that, especially if you use the STAR approach. I used to say, like, when someone says, tell us more about yourself, when they say that, I would already create a short story where I'll make it where I'll make sure that I talk about who I am, what I'm doing, what I'm passionate about, what I want to contribute. By the time it comes to all the other questions, they are just obviously picking from what I've already taught them, and that's how I'm managing my time, so that I don't spend so I don't take up too much of my time. So it's very important that you really are structured when you go and you communicate, and it helps you it helps you manage your time, and really just so the interviews can keep on probing more because you have more time. But other than that, the reason why you are shortlisted is because you can do it and you will make it. Thank you.
No, thank you, Martha. You know what I love is the STAR approach is so important. I remember you had spoken about it. You had actually spoken of two. I can't remember what the second one was. In the first session when we spoke about just, scholarships, and I really have taken it with me. I actually learned how to use it when I speak. And if anything, I'm going to get into that when I do my session. So it's currently 34. We've got 5 minutes to do a Q&A session. So I'm going to start with the questions in the chat. Hyacinth U40 says, with the leadership question, can I share with the panel new leadership roles that I got involved in after submitting my application, or do I have to stick to what I wrote in my essay?
I would say speak to what you wrote in your essay, and maybe add it on, or ask them to, if you can. Okay, maybe first ask if you can, because from my experience, I've come to understand you must share what you have written down in your essays. But if you can maybe speak, it's maybe I coordinated this, and recently it also came out that this, and I also did this and this. You are explaining it in such a way that it's only adding to one of your experience that you've already written on. I think it should not be a problem.
All right. And I think I also agree in that bring forth what it is that you wrote in your essays, but feel free to then add onto the example, but link the two. Don't come with completely new information in essence. The second question is from Tumbikani. Will the panel ask us to give examples of other situations when we demonstrated leadership? And from my understanding of that question, it's basically speaking to additional examples outside of the ones that we have in our essays.
It will depend, and the panel can do that, because the panel is very unpredictable. Hey, it's not like what we are saying is what's going to happen. Things can really differ when you get to the interview day. So it really depends. You must just be prepared for anything. But all that you need to understand is that they will have to test you on your leadership essay. It will come in many ways, in different ways, but it does not mean that you will not be able to find an answer from what you have written down.
The next question is from George Titati asking, is it good to use statistics when answering questions, or would that sound too technical?
No, not at all. Statistics are good because you're obviously having something verified. You are giving something concrete. It doesn't really matter, guys. Like, it does not matter whether you're bringing statistics or you're not bringing statistics. It just matters how you are going to explain what you did. And if statistics is what's going to sell this, then you need to show them. Tell them how much it was and how it resulted into this.
Okay. I think Naomi wants to add probably to the question of the whole new examples versus old. Naomi, go ahead.
Hi, thanks. No, Martha, I'm not about to correct you in any way. I saw that on your face. No, I'm not about to correct you in any way, you or Mavis. I wanted to add to that to say, Martha is right. Your panel is unpredictable. Don't get flustered about it. The person who also put in the panel, in the comment section, I have leadership experiences after my application. Sometimes the panel will say, I like to ask people, besides what you've put in your application, can you give me newer versions of when you've showed leadership? Or can you give me an updated situation when you showed leadership, or when you've been impactful within the last 6 months, within the last 3 months? You know, I like to do that because I've read that. I don't want you to say what I've already read. I want to hear something new so that I know that you are being continuously in that leadership state. You are thinking in a leadership mindset. Okay, so that's the one. The other one was, what was that one that the gentleman just asked now, Mavis?
It was basically, no, not that one. Hold on.
Statistics, if they can add, if they can use stats, yeah.
Yeah, I can't.
So, to put it simply, use enough information to make sense and be impactful in a very short period of time. Take heed to what Martha was saying, manage your time, and here's something that you learn to do, front load your information. So put in as much in the beginning so that when your time is running out, you've already said the most important things. So you can add statistics, but make sure that they mean something. Don't use jargon, because not everybody on the panel will be from your field. So chances are they might be sitting there going, what does EOI mean? As opposed to listening to you the entire time. Yeah. And statistics only in as much as they will have impact and help respond to your situation. Don't come up with just some, like a lot of statistics and a lot of information just to respond to the question. At some point, trust me, we start thinking about birds and our lunch.
Because you're just human at the end of the day. Okay, in the chat section, we have a very useful question, but I think, Martha, I will let you answer that in the chat section given the time. It's in relation to explaining the STAR approach a bit further, and I think that's a very important question because it's such a useful strategy in answering questions. So, Martha, I'll let you answer that in the chat, and maybe also just provide some links where they could actually see it properly explained, similar to what you did in the first session, the 101 session for scholarships.
Okay. Mavis?
Yes.
I just want to quickly answer something which I think it's about university and university options. I will really try and keep it as brief as possible. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
All right. So there's somebody that keeps asking about university options. So just remember, you've got 3 choices. You do need to give 3 university options with 3 subject choices. You need to set which one is your first choice, your second choice, and your third choice. You do need that. If you've been rejected, reapply. And if you receive the offer or if you receive any kind of feedback, or even if you don't, you need to mention this at your interview, because not everybody would have given that information ahead of time. So please make sure to bring that information along with you for the interview. Any offers, again, if you have received any offers after your application was sent through, please bring those along to the interview. And yes, you do require 3 universities. So if you've been rejected from 1 or from 2, you need to reapply, because there do need to be 3 choices. They're very, very insistent on that this time around. Thanks.
If there's anything you should take away from this session, if you're at the interview stage, is your universities. It's literally the most important thing, because you could actually forfeit your scholarship if you get it and you don't get into the universities, because oftentimes, and the thing is about, okay, that's really not my part to talk about. I think Mubita covers that. But in essence, we'll talk about it in the workshop. So maybe I'll say that in closing. But your university options are so important, because if you list them at your interview stage, and for example, Naomi, your sort of Chevening officer sends those options through to the UK Secretariat, Chevening Secretariat, you are most likely not allowed to change those 3 options that you have on your final list. So just be cognizant. It is so important. If you've applied to 1 university, I suggest you, after this session, go apply to 10 more. It's literally the most important thing at this current stage in your processes. Nonetheless, so now I've lost 3 minutes. It's okay. We're okay. I just won't do a Q&A session after this. I'll do it in the chat. All right. Thank you for joining. My name is Mavis. I am facilitator, host, and I will be covering the networking session. Ultimately, the way that we're structuring this is we're asking all 4 questions in your 4 essays, because those are ultimately the things that will come up in your interview, and just making sure that we actually workshop those as effectively as possible to allow you to get thinking. So, and as far as networking goes, I think the understanding of how networking is understood can sometimes vary depending on the person. And if anything, I'd like you to please put in the comments section, what do you understand networking to be in 1 word? Not a sentence, just a word. What do you think networking is? Put that in the chat, because I'd like to actually have a look at what your thinking is at present. So there's a quote that I often live by, and it's that never take any platform for granted, because it may be the stage for your next opportunity. And for me, that's what networking is. It's understanding that wherever it is I find myself, there's always an opportunity to formulate a relationship in that room or place that might propel me into my next opportunity. I never take for granted the relationships that I build, because you never know when it might come in handy. It's not to say that when I meet people, it's always to see what can I get out of you or get from you, but it's understanding that relationships are truly what you need in order to be able to get to where it is you want sometimes, because everybody's got something that they can teach you. So, networking is understanding that you are the star player, and it's really just getting yourself thinking of what are the relationships that you have outside of your family and even friends, but what are the relationships that surround you? What do those people do? Who are they to you? Do you have access to them? And what type of access do you have to them? But then it's furthering that thinking and understanding, how did I ever formulate a friendship, relationship, or companionship? And how has that been beneficial looking forward? So it's thinking back to a time where you were at a networking event and you met Martha, and you and Martha then formulated a friendship, and Martha was able to connect you to someone for a job opportunity. It's really just playing back in your mind, what are the opportunities that you've ever received, and how did you get those opportunities, and who were the players that were involved, and those people are your network. So oftentimes when we think about networking and we say we don't have networking skills, is we're understanding it to have put us in a leadership position. It must have put us on a board position, but no, it's simply a relationship that connected me to Naomi, a relationship that connected me to someone, or a relationship that in some way was beneficial. It could be somebody that ended up mentoring you. It could be somebody that, helped you in the process of ascertaining what you want to do in your career, got you thinking about maybe scholarships, brought you to this position of even wanting to apply for a scholarship. Those are the people who are your network. And in essence, it's really understanding what type of access do you have from them. So when you go about answering your question for the networking segment, if they were to ask you, there's two ways in which that question will probably come forth. It's a question of, tell us about what do you believe networking to be, and tell us about a time where a relationship sort of came out of a networking opportunity, and what did that do for you? So in essence, I want you to work you through the thinking. The first thing is you need to understand, what did you say in your essay, right? Because that's the first place. And then secondly, you need to be able to understand, what do you define networking as? Because in your essay, you're probably supposed to define it. Has that transcended and changed over time? Or can you build off of your initial understanding of what networking is and transcend it into a question or an answer that you could give to the panel? And then, so in essence, when you're answering the question, it will probably be twofold in what do you think networking is? And secondly, give us an example. And it is in giving examples that you should probably use the STAR approach, because oftentimes we end up telling a story and forget that we need to talk about impact, because networking is about impact. What was the impact of that relationship? So you must be able to ascertain that, yes, I met this person. I'll give an example for myself, and obviously we're not the same person, so you can't possibly use it too. But I hosted an event in which I had a speaker who is the First Lady of Namibia. I met her there before she became the First Lady and formulated a friendship with her, or relationship rather. And so after that, I then had the opportunity to serve on her board. But if I was to tell that story, I would do it a lot more in depth and in detail, but always remembering what was the impact of formulating that relationship at the beginning when I met her. That's how I formulated the network, but what was the impact of the network? And that's your outcome. So it's, in essence, when you tell your story, don't forget to always think of impact and outcome, because the networking relationship is only relevant to the networking question if there was impact and outcome. Because you could formulate friendships with very high profile people should you choose to use them as examples, but there isn't an outcome. It's just a relationship. You know what I mean? Also, the second thing to note is your networking examples don't necessarily have to be only thinking of high profile people, because some of the most important relationships that you'll formulate don't necessarily have to be with high profile people. I have had friendships that have been a lot more impactful than any high profile relationships that I might have been able to formulate. So in essence, what I had done is I had used a high profile figure to show that there is access, and how I use those relationships to be able to sort of derive as much from them as possible. And on the other hand, I also used an example of people that I had met doing charity work, and how it is they were able to show me new things and teach me new things, and perhaps even propel me into new ideas and so forth, because those are also as important as the high profile ones. So do not sort of discard your networking, your network, simply because of title and positioning. Yes, you can use one example of the most high profile person on your network list, but also don't discard the fact that any common man on the street that you formulated a relationship with can also be impactful. And then ensure that you have two examples on hand. And I kind of just said that in saying that you can have two people in mind. Feel free to have three just in case. But also when one of the things that Martha said is manage your time. And when you're managing your time, make sure that you don't launch into a story where you give details that are truly not necessary, right? Think of, it's almost like highlighting the most important parts, managing your time to make sure that you communicated well, but also ensuring that you're not exactly like, I met her and then we became friends and then this happened, but rather getting into the details of how that truly happened, so that it's a flowing story, always thinking that I'm telling a story with impact and outcome. And then opportunity. Think about some of the most, think about some of the times in your life that have truly been important to you, right? Think about maybe some of your achievements. If you were to list 3 of your biggest achievements, list them and think to yourself, how did those achievements come about? Who did I speak to maybe get me thinking about the opportunity to begin with? Who did I speak to help me write the essay? And then it's a thing of taking your essay that you already wrote and the examples you put there, and maybe rethinking the delivery to be able to make sure that you use some of these methodologies that we're just currently giving you as far as the STAR approach, impact, output, and so forth. Right? Okay. And getting you thinking, one of the things that Naomi said is that you're going to have to practice, right? So you're going to have to maybe stand in your mirror for a few days, just making sure that you can answer these questions. Get yourself a timer to see how long you take to actually answer questions. And as you're doing the thinking of being able to make the story flow, but making sure that you give output and impact, then you are already looking at how long it takes you to tell the story. So that'll be able to tell you that no, the answer is too short, because you also don't want awkward silences in your interview, because if they ask you questions and your interview lasts 20 minutes because your answers are so short, it really doesn't help anybody at the end of the day, because you have to be memorable. But it's not a question of just saying and speaking for the sake of speaking. It's a thing of making sure that what you bring forward is valuable to your interview. And that you can only certainly do with your timing. So I'm very keen. I'm one of those people that are always timekeeping. It's just something that I do. So I would advise you that as you do the practicing in the mirror, as was suggested by Naomi, that you also make sure that you have a timer with you so that you can see how do you deliver your questions. And feel free to get 2 people that you trust to be your mock panel. Okay, so getting you thinking about your networking question. What was the impact of the networking relations that you formulated, and how were they created? So it's really just going back into time and remembering, how did I become friends or meet my mentor? Or thinking, how did I end up formulating a relationship with Jessica for her to be able to recommend me for a job position? It's really just replaying events, because your networks have happened. It's just you having to identify where they happened. And also thinking about new examples, like Naomi said, where it's not just a question of like, what did you write in your essay, but how have you formulated new relationships post writing and applying to Chevening? Just to get you thinking and get your creative juices flowing before the interview. You're not going to sit inside the interview and be like, when did I? All that thinking is supposed to happen before the interview. In the interview, you have to have them on the tip of your tongue, because in that moment you're supposed to, it's not about memorizing the question. It's about knowing which example you will use. And those examples must have been thought about prior to the interview, right? And then how do you formulate networking relationships? Even going forward, when you do come to the UK, should you be a successful applicant? I've got 2 minutes. Should you be a successful applicant, how do you formulate relationships? Are you one of those people that are constantly going to networking events? Do you sign up for book clubs? What do you usually do to formulate your relationship? So start thinking forward, because you're going to have to also answer how you will formulate relationships when in the UK. How do you go about that? And then how do you maintain those relationships? It's not just about getting somebody's business card. It's about having that person actually see you as someone that they can relate to and reach out to, where you've got an actual personal relationship. So with that said, one last thing, given I've got a minute left, you need to think also about networking in the midst of COVID. I mean, you've lived in the pandemic for a year now. So how have you been formulating relationships, given the fact that you applied for this scholarship 3 months ago? Looking forward, what have you done to formulate new relationships? So think about networking in a pandemic, because it's not the same anymore. You guys are really one of the most, your cohort, my cohort too, since I'm also in a pandemic, but it's been interesting formulating relationships in the midst of a pandemic. So get that thinking already going. With that, I hope that I was able to do this justice. I've got so much to say, but because of time, I would have to end it here. I will not do the Q&A session live. I would rather go into the comment section, because, well, let me double check actually what the time is. What time was I supposed to finish? 55. Oh no, I'm actually in time for the Q&A session. Time management skills on fleek. Okay. All right, so then I'll do questions. Light, you'll have to help me here.
Great. I think you deserve a clap. Thank you so much. That was really precise. I think one question that is coming out of the chat, this is one from Paul, asking about if they can use examples from after the interview. I think you've already mentioned that. Maybe you can expound a bit more.
I think it's really what Naomi said, in as far as think about everything, leadership, network, whichever, and think about what has happened after you submitted your essays. How have you depicted those sort of qualities post. So think about it. And really, I think if you were to think about networking after having applied, you will usually find that you have to do it in the midst of a pandemic, which will inform how you would go about it should you be successful. Kwame, I see your hand is up, but we will not be taking live questions. You'd have to post it in the chat just for courtesy of time. Elias, you can go ahead.
I think that was the only question in terms of leadership. I mean, in terms of networking.
That's all right.
Yeah.
In that case,
okay, there's one from Phoebe saying, kindly advise on how to answer what you can add to the UK through Shrivening. I believe this will be answered by our next speaker, so don't fret about that. There's a question from Christian. How will you contribute to the Shrivening network during your studies in the UK and when back?
I've seen those two questions before. Let me try to answer them. Okay, so how would you add to the Shrivening alumni? I think really what I have found very helpful is just continuing a lot of the work that I was doing and just sort of incorporating Shrivening in the process. So I love hosting events. It's just something that I enjoy doing. So this is not me stepping out of my way to add to the network. It's really just adding onto what I already do. So what I would advise is look at what you already do. Are you a speaker? Are you a blogger, a YouTuber? Are you a writer? What do you already do, and how can you then incorporate the Chevening sort of brand in that? So if you do charity work, can you work with the British High Commission to host a charity event with the Chevening alumni? It's really just a question of what are you already doing and how can you add the Chevening brand to it. You don't have to go out of your way to go and go formulate new projects, although that it would be great. And should you have ideas, I sincerely encourage it. But more often what is sustainable is doing what you're already doing and just incorporating. And then there was a thing of how have you networked in the UK during the pandemic? You have to attend stuff online. And I know that Zoom fatigue is a real thing, but you don't have to overextend yourself. You can just attend what truly interests you, which is the thing with networking and even just working with the Chevening brand after you are done studying in the UK. It's just, what do you like? If you're one of those people that like poetry, can you go to a poetry club event on Zoom? If you're one of those people that love, I don't know, maybe you're a Black Lives Matter advocate, or you're an ally, or you're an activist, just find those clubs and networks that already exist in the field that you're interested in, attend them and formulate friendships. The only thing is that it's not the same as just attending the event, as you would already know in person if you attended an event. In order to network, cognizant of time, in order for you to network, you would actually have to take that extra step to be able to make sure that you get a contact, that you get an email, that you get something. So the same way you would do it in person, you would then have to do it in that Zoom chat. You'd have to ask somebody that sparks your interest and ask them, hey, can I have your email address so I can be in contact? Or something that's a lot more impersonal that people are a lot more comfortable with is, can I have your LinkedIn address or your Twitter handle should you be on social media? So just the same thinking that you would apply in a room in person, apply it on Zoom. And that's how I have managed to build a network. And also just relationships such as these, where I can call on Light, Jessica, as well as Martha, to be able to assist, as well as Naomi. That's how you network. So thank you. I am done speaking 20 minutes straight. So my section in as far as networking is done. Just to advise you guys, as the speaker speaks, right? If you have a question about something that they just said, ask it in the chat so that you don't forget it. You don't have to wait till the speaker is done. You can just ask as we go. So now we move on to Jessica, who will be covering session 3 on career plan. Jessica, welcome. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. It's been a really insightful session so far, and thanks, Mavis, Light, Naomi, Martha, for your really brilliant sessions, actually. Okay, so let's get into it. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to tackle how to deal with the career plan question. But before we get right into it, I just wanted us to note a few things that actually some have already been mentioned before by some of the speakers. But the first thing I want to talk about is like panel composition and of course background information. Now, this is basically talking about the fact that most likely on the panel that you're going to speak to, there's likely to be someone that is in a field that is similar to what you're in, based on the career essay that you already wrote. So when you're speaking, what that is specifically telling you is that if you're going to mention technical things, you have to make sure you're saying the right things, because it's quite likely that someone can know what you're talking about. And if you are selling lies, they're going to be able to call you out on it. So that's something that you need to be very, very aware of, especially if your field is quite technical. Maybe you're in medicine or you're in engineering, like something that is very technical. You need to make sure you're getting your information right. Also, try not to veer too far away from the background information that you've already presented the panel with in your essays, which is something that has been said by Martha, said by Mavis, said by Naomi. So I don't think I would go too much into that. The next thing I wanted people to note is time constraints, right? Especially in this time where some of us are doing online interviews. It's very important to note that technology can be a little fickle. So once you have them, just like how Naomi said, front load your answers. Make sure that when you're asked a question and you're providing your response, the very first things that you say are the most important things. So that even if your internet cuts out, right, you said the most important things that you wanted the panel to know. So, and that's the first thing. Second thing is that because of the fact that you're maybe using the internet, you might want to get the panel might have a time, like a duration set that they expect you to be able to finish your interview within. So try to be as concise as possible. And of course, I think composure is something that is implied, but I wanted to mention it anyway, just so that you can know that someone said it. You need to know that even though you're probably going to feel nervous and anxious, people on the panel want you to do well. Naomi is likely to be on some people's panels in Namibia, but she's here trying to give information on how to excel. Because really, even though it is the final sieve, the purpose is to get the best out of you, not necessarily to put you down. So try and be calm as possible and put your best foot forward, basically. And just like the final thing is a technical thing, when you're speaking, look into the camera so they can see you're speaking to them and not necessarily just looking away, which is just like etiquettes for online speaking engagements, basically. All right, so now that we've got that down, let's get right into the question. Next slide, please. So the question is going to come in maybe another form, but basically this is what they're trying to get out of you. Please outline your immediate plans upon returning home and your longer term career goals. And you may wish to consider how these relate to what the UK government is doing in your country. So next slide, please. For me personally, my question was, can you tell us about your career plans post-Shrivening and how that relates to what the UK government is doing in your country? So you see how, for my question, they put both of them together in one question, and I had to talk about my plans and how that relates directly. It could come in different ways and different forms for other people, but this is basically the information they're trying to get out of you. Okay, so tip number one, like Mavis said, like Martha said, read through your essay again, just to make sure that you're comfortable and very well acquainted with your own stories. And then tip number two would be break it down to short-term to medium-term plans, which would involve, for instance, the 2 years mandatory return back home policy that Chevening has. So maybe 2 to 3 years, 2 to 5 years, talk about what you intend to do within that time. And then of course, maybe 5 to 10 years as your long-term plan. And then how that is in line with UK government efforts within your country. Specifically about that, what I wanted to mention, I actually was speaking to a couple other Chevenists last night, and one person mentioned something that was very important I thought I would share with you guys. A lot of people get very carried away in checking what is going on the Dev Tracker platform. And so want to make sure that they're finding a story that is on that platform, that a project that is on that platform that would be in line with their career. And when they don't find something specific to them, you feel like there's nothing you can actually cite. But there's so many other things that the UK is involved in. Things like the FDGs, for instance. Sometimes you might have to find something very specific. For instance, I'm in business, right, in marketing. And so I didn't necessarily have to get something from the development tracker platform, but I still found something within my country that was related to marketing and business development that the UK Aid was sponsoring. So you could always find something within your country, but you need to broaden your research and make sure that you're finding something, even if it's not necessarily on Dev Tracker, but also something that the UK government is directly involved in or sponsoring in some way. So that's one thing that you need to note, especially with that question of how is your career plan in line with UK government efforts within your country. Number 3 would be also in line with the question about, do you put statistics in your response? So just like everybody has said, impact is very important. In your career plan, post-Chevening is training you with leadership and all of these, and your masters, so you can go back and make some impact in your country, right? So that career plan that you have, that project that you're trying to get into after Chevening, what is the impact? What are the numbers? Are you going to go into some charity work? How many women and girls is your charity going to affect? How many businesses are you going to help? What the impact is basically. So if you have numbers, that will be great. Proposed numbers, of course, because it's in the future, but some sort of futuristic analysis of your plan would be great, so that we know the impact that you're going to make in that area, in that project. And I think tip number 4 would be, in all your responses, connect it to how the Chevening experience makes that plan possible. So if you're going to start a business, if you're going to start a hub training young women in coding or whatever, link it to how having your master's in the UK through the Chevening experience led to ABC, and will make this plan a possibility, because that's the plan, right? The point is to see how much your life will be changed, and you'll go on to change other lives because of this experience that Chevening is giving you, and also the education that Chevening is funding. And I think the final tip is own your plan. Just the same way Martha said, own your story. Just the same way Mavis said, things that you're already doing, keep doing them. In this way, own your plan just means don't memorize your response, but let us see that it's coming from you. It's something that you're passionate about and trying to achieve meaningfully, right? And trying to make this impact because it works. It's in line with what you actually want to achieve. That project is in line with what you want to achieve and what the UK government is clearly interested in within your country. So yeah, with these 5 plans, without necessarily having to talk about how you would answer the question, because I'm not you and I cannot necessarily answer it for you specifically. With this, I think you should be prepared to answer the career plan question. Can I see the next slide, please? Okay, so I put this here because it's the response that one Shrivening alumni was in the 2016 cohort when he was asked how to deal with the question of career plan for Shrivening. This was his response, right? Like, how does the master's degree fall into your plan for the future? 1, how are you going to execute that plan? 2, have you thought about how you can maximize the impact of your project? Will your actions make a difference in the life of people in your country, and or strengthen the relationship between your country and the UK? Chevening is looking for applicants that have an answer to that kind of question. And clearly, if you were called for an interview, it means that Chevening, the panel, are already impressed with what you wrote in response to that question in your personal statement, and would like to see that come to life with your response in the interview. So obviously you have what it takes to answer the question. You've already proven that your plan is in line with what Chevening is looking for. And so now we want to see how passionate you are about that plan, how much you've thought about that plan, and how that plan is going to look like from your own words, while of course looking at your face through the computer or in person. But basically you have what it takes. You made it this far, and you have what it takes to make it to the end. And with that, I would like to bring my session to a close and take questions at this point. Mavis, what are you doing on time?
You actually are 5 minutes early. I'm proud. I think this is amazing. Thank you so much, Jess. Also very, very informative, concise. And I like how you ended with just talking about how exactly they can actually ensure that their plans correlate with that of Shrivening. So in the question section, I don't see anything as yet. Okay, here's one. George is asking, what if the panel asks you how you are currently involved with the UK projects in your country, and bearing in mind you are working in non-UK projects?
Okay, so to answer this, I would say that it's not a requirement for Chevening for you to be working in UK projects in your country at the time of applying. So obviously that's not something that you're required to do. But if you're someone who is already working in some projects that is of interest to Chevening, then it will be great to, not Chevening, interest to the UK, but not necessarily a UK project themselves. For instance, if the UK High Commission, British High Commission in your country has a project, but you have a parallel project that is not necessarily being funded or managed by the High Commission, you can mention that just to draw the connection that they're doing this, you're interested in this. It might be on parallel trajectories, but it's very important also to fulfill the target that the UK government is trying to fulfill anyway. Yeah. However, you need to know that it's not a requirement. You don't necessarily have to be involved in UK projects to be a Chevener. I wasn't before coming here, and I'm not sure everybody who was a Chevener was involved in some UK project or the other before coming here.
Yeah, I like that. And I like the fact that you mentioned that they should do some research in as far as what is the UK government currently doing in your home country, so that you can actually make a correlation, because perhaps it's something that you might have touched on or worked on in some part of your career life, and maybe have an interest to come back and further in, because it just, you know, the more you know about the UK, the more you know about the Chevening, scholarship itself, the more you know about the either if you've got the British High Commission in your country or whichever, it's a lot better, because this is somebody who's well researched, well read, understands, you know, what is required of them. So the more research you do, the better. Yeah. So Nana,
specifically for me,
no, go ahead.
Just to add to that, right? For me, for instance, I'm interested in I'm in marketing degree, obviously, and it wasn't something that was specifically happening in Ghana about marketing, but I know that the UK government was was sponsoring an NGO, Challenges Worldwide, who would come to Ghana and work with businesses and teach founders and managers how to better manage, how to better market, how to better work on their accounting. So that's something that is not necessarily on the Dev Tracker platform, not necessarily the UK government, and I wasn't working in directly, but it was something very, very linked to what I was doing anyway. And so I linked that to my career plan, you know? So there's always something out there. You just need to really find it and plug that.
The link, yeah. Which I guess to expound on that question, or rather on that statement, Nana is asking, what about a UK NGO? In essence, she's asking if it's not the UK government, but a UK-based organization.
Yeah, I think that's actually quite perfect, you know, because if it's a UK organization, you can already draw that connection. But also the fact is that most UK organizations that come to work in your country may have a connection already at the High Commission, because the High Commission usually facilitates these NGOs coming to work in your country anyway. Yeah. So making that connection, it's kind of like what I just mentioned, right? Making that connection is always something that could help you with your response.
Yeah, so just find the link and roll with it. Okay, so we're up on time. Thank you so much, Jessica. We're going to move on, but yeah, I think if anything, it's so important to just understand the linkages in many of these things. It carries through from the first session that Martha was speaking on, all the way to networking, all the way to your career. It's just a question of what are the linkages and how can you find those links and tell the story in that manner. So Mubita, who will actually have to introduce himself, because he was so kind as to grace us with his presence, even though he had a commitment prior to this. Really, truly appreciate you for managing your time so effectively. So Mubita, please feel free to put on your camera, and I'll just have to ask that you kindly start with, I would like to ask that you kindly start with introducing yourself before launching into the session. Mubita,
thank you for having me, Mavis. Good morning, colleagues, friends, and fellow scholars, because I know that a lot of you will join the Chevening network soon. My name is Mubita. I'm from Zambia. I am...
Sorry, Mubita, your speaker cut out.
Oh, can you...
Okay, that's better. You're back now.
Okay, so I was saying that my name is Mubita. I'm from Zambia. I'm studying a master's in entrepreneurship and innovation here at the University of Sussex through a Chevening scholarship. Yeah, so that's my introduction. But also, I'd just like to make a disclaimer before I go ahead and give my talk today. I want you guys to be very, very aware of the fact that anything that I say here today is my own opinion, formed from my own experiences, things that I have gone through, and I will endeavor to stick to my own interaction with the Chevening scholarship. I don't represent the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. I don't represent Chevening. So anything I say, take as guidelines, don't take as gospel truth, but then they will help you in your career. So we can get started. Yeah, your studying in the UK part of the interview is much related to the question in your essay about outlining why you have selected your chosen 3 courses and explaining how this relates with your previous academic or professional experience. So the parameters of the questions which they will ask you in this section will basically be around that particular question, in as much as there might be a plethora of questions that they will ask you in different ways. This question speaks to 3 things. So the exposition of it is, number 1, outline why you have selected your chosen 3 university choices. So number 1, you will be speaking about course choices. Number 2, explain how this relates to your previous academic or professional experience, which means you will be speaking about your commitment to professional development. You have studied before, you have worked before. How does what you want to study now relate to this education and experience? And then, because it's a studying in the UK section of the interview, it also speaks to your understanding of the UK. Now, the questions that you will be asked in this section might be overt and direct on these 3 things, but they also may not be overt and direct. They will be inferred from the way that you answer the questions that they will ask you. So bear in mind, as you go into the section on studying in the UK, that they're assessing you on these 3 things. So we'll get into them in the next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so what would likely make you score highly in this section? I've outlined these 3 things with the 3 things that I've talked about: course choices, continuing your commitment to personal development, and your understanding of the UK. So when it comes to your course choices, what you want to be doing when you go to the interview is to demonstrate clearly that you've thoroughly researched your 3 chosen course choices. How are you going to research these things? If you have not done so by now, make your course choices on the websites of your schools your best friends. Go to these websites, find out what the objective of the course is, what the core modules in these courses are, what the possible electives are going to be, and think clearly about what that means to you. Because when you go to the interview, it is your chance to demonstrate that you have researched these things and you know them well. You might get away if you just mention them and show some relevance to your career, but you will be doing yourself a very good favor if you can demonstrate that you understand these things. Number 2, what should you be looking out for when you go to the interview? You should be able to prove that you already hold offers from your schools. And conditional offers would really be good at this point if you have them. If you don't have them, at least have conditional ones. 1 or 2 would suffice. 1 is really good. 2 even better. All of them shows that you know what you know. But don't worry if you don't have them. Just make sure that by the time your interview comes, you have at least applied to all of them. Show them in the interview, tell them that if you haven't applied, I don't know, maybe that just says you're not serious, but I hope that by the end of this recording today, by the end of this talk, at least you will push in your application so you can say during the interview that you have applied to all your 3 courses. At least demonstrate that. When you go to your interview, the third thing you want to be showing about your course choices is that not only do you understand them and have you applied, you know how they'll relate to what you have studied before and where you're going in the future and your industry and your country. Because remember, the Chevening Scholarship is not just about you. It's about your country as well. So what are you going to do with this course that you're going to get in the UK? So yes, you know it well, but how relevant is it for your country? At this point, they've already selected you for an interview, so they're convinced that what you wrote in your essays means that you understand the relevance of your course to your country. But the question really is, how well are you able to explain it? In essence, your interview is putting a face in the essay. So the face should be able to do a very good explanation you did in the essay. Do not merely only strive to explain things you've already explained in the essay. This is your chance to shine by scaffolding it with relevant things. Let's move on to the second part, which is your commitment to personal development. When you go for the interview and you're being interviewed on your studying in the UK, you should be able to demonstrate a strong aptitude to studying and professional development. What does this mean? At this point, many of you have undergraduate degrees. It is not uncommon in the Chevening process to find people who have not yet graduated. There's one lady from Kenya who only got her undergraduate degree after being selected for the scholarship. That is in rare cases though. But at this point, you should have already shown that, okay, I have at least an undergrad degree that can get me into a UK school. I have also, studied 1 or 2 other things. I have an award or 2 here. I have an accolade or 2 here from work or from the community, something that shows that you're committed to your own professional development. They might likely not ask you direct questions about this, but you should be able in the way that you answer your questions to demonstrate that this is a reality in your life. I'm not saying that if you don't have any other things you studied, you stand at a disadvantage, but what I'm telling you is that you have strong candidates that have. You might want to place yourself on a good place, because Chevening only selects 1 to 2% of total applicants. Another thing in CPD is that you should demonstrate that you have achieved or are in the process of undertaking academic awards, training, short courses, or producing publications. These are important as well. If there are some writings that you've done somewhere, speak about, tell your story, show people that you know your stuff within the interview. Because it's one thing to say, I want to go and study this and that, and I've researched it. It's another thing to demonstrate that you know your stuff. If you can provide multiple examples to demonstrate your commitment to CPD, well, provide less than. If you can provide 1, you're okay. But if you make no mention of the fact that you at least are committed to your professional development, you might be putting yourself at a risk. So you might want to think about that when you are answering questions about studying in the UK. Show them that you know your course, show them also that you're committed to studying. But not the most important, but also a very important part of studying in the UK is your understanding of the UK itself. It's basically about studying in the UK. So you want to show why not the US, why not Canada, why not Russia, why did you choose the UK? So you should demonstrate a strong understanding of the United Kingdom as a country in terms of its culture and the way people live. You should at least be able to name 1 or 2 famous things about the UK, Stonehenge, London Bridge, Big Ben. Show them that you have researched the UK, you know about the UK. But away from just knowing about the UK and the way of life, what do you know about the UK's education system? What makes it stand out for you? Say nice things about the UK's education system that you understand. It's a world-class education, which is why you're applying here. Otherwise, you'd have applied elsewhere. It will set you apart when it comes to the job market. It will raise your portfolio. Speak about the fact that you understand the strength of the United Kingdom's education system. You should also be demonstrating a strong understanding of the challenges you will face while studying in the UK. It's not all, sweets and roses. if as a candidate you're really strong in all of these other areas, but you think that it won't be challenging to study in the UK, you might want to think again. You know, they will not ask you, or maybe they will ask you questions about what are you likely to what are you anticipating that you're likely to have as challenges in the UK, but be thinking about that because they will infer it from some of the answers that you will give. So you should be able to demonstrate strongly that you understand the challenges of study abroad, particularly in the UK. Okay, so this is basically what you're positioning yourself for when you go for the study in the UK part. So in the next part, I'll give typical examples of some of the things that you should be looking for. Next slide. So what you're looking to elaborate on when you go to the interview, these are the practical things. So number one, they will ask you or they won't ask you, but be ready to update them on the status of your courses. If you have applied, update them about that. If you have changed your courses because you've been rejected or your order of preference has changed, you now want your second choice to be your first choice, you should be able to say this during this part. I remember in my interview, they asked me if this has changed, and I said no, but this might change for some of you because at this point, you understand very well yourself whether you have been accepted to your priority school or whether the reality is clearing your doubts. So you should be able at this point to explain that. But then also you should be ready to motivate on the why. The why is very important. Anything you do or say within the whole Chevening interview is not as important as why you are there in the first place. So in studying in the UK, you must motivate on why you've chosen that degree. Some of the things you could be talking about in your why is what are some of the accreditations? For those of you who are studying business courses like me, AASCB, AMBA, some of those strong accreditations to your course. How is your school, your department ranked in the world? So for those of you that want to study development, if you're going to study at the University of Sussex, you could say something nice like, I'm going to study at IDS, the world #1 in development studies, you know, such things like that, you know what I mean? So speak to some of those things. Also, you should be able to speak about extracurricular opportunities within your school. What are the facilities in your school that are chosen, that have drawn you towards the school? Are there any unique teaching methods? Are there any key academics? For example, in leadership, one of the key academics in the world is Dennis Turish, and he teaches at the University of Sussex, by the way, if you want to come to Sussex. You could also talk about opportunities like field trips, industry visits, volunteering programs that are associated with your course. Be ready to speak about these things. Motivate on why you've chosen this course, because these are the practical aspects. And then also on motivating on why, when it comes to the UK, specifically speak about the UK. This is important, guys. It's studying in the UK, not studying in Kenya. Speak about why the UK. Have a grasp on British values and culture. Go and research those now if you haven't. Do a quick Google search of some of the famous historical sites. Even the weather is important, you know. Some of us have had to go through strange experiences because of the weather, but you might want to speak about the weather as well. It can both be an opportunity and a challenge. Speak about why you're choosing your school, you know. Don't give vague things like Cambridge is world-renowned. No, speak about specifics about Cambridge, what makes it world-renowned. What makes it world-renowned for your course? Why do you fit into the Cambridge culture? And then also speak about some of the things you're looking forward to the most when you go to the UK. But finally, and this is most important, I keep speaking about this, some of the challenges that you practically might want to speak about are COVID, because that has been a challenge practically for those of us who are studying the UK now. How are you going to mitigate that? Homesickness is real. You might want to speak to that as well. You know, you will miss home, I promise you. And then speak about issues to do with your mental health, and speak especially about issues to do with how you integrate in the UK culture. The first few months of you being in the UK will be about you trying to understand the culture here. So some of you will experience some level of culture shock at varying degrees. So these are some of the practical things that you can talk about in your studying in the UK that speak to the things that I spoke about before. If there are any other questions, I can address them in the Q&A, but this is it.
You know, I laughed a little when you spoke about the weather and you're like, we have to go through interesting things. you come, like, I don't know what background you're from or where you're from, but if you're from Africa, any part of Africa, the sun is one of those things we take for granted. And I'll let you know, I came here and missed the sun terribly, to the point I've had to take vitamins to supplement my vitamin D. And I mean, I just never thought in life I'd ever need to take vitamins because I like sun. It's an interesting experience, but one that teaches you a lot about yourself. So Mubita, we have a few questions for you here. Thank you so much. That was a great session. I love how you laid it out so practically, and also got people thinking just of how to set yourself apart, which is one of the fundamental questions that came through earlier on from the participants. So this question is from Teboho. He's asking, do you wait for them to ask if you have changed your priority courses, or you just straight include that in the interview?
I mean, one of the most important things about any interview, Teboho, is your ability to read the room. Be able to read the room. They might ask you this question, but I promise you it's important. So if they don't ask you, read the room, be able to speak about it. The important thing is for you to speak about this, tell them. Because unfortunately, if you don't speak about your courses and if things have changed now, you now start running up and down after they've selected you and you don't have any offers and you lose the scholarship. So it's much more of an advantage to you to speak about it than to wait to be asked, So read the room. Yeah.
Steve is asking, I have an offer at Sussex, realizing most of you are at Sussex. What's one interesting thing that you can tell me about your school?
Listen, Stephen, Sussex is a nice school, like every other school in the UK, we learn well. It's a world-class institution, but with every other school, it's the same. You just find it, And I will not give you fish. Just go look for the fish.
Yeah, but yeah, just get some of the facts and really watch. I know that Jessica has got a YouTube video that's coming out soon talking about some of these things, and one of the scholars is a Sussex student, and her formulating the question and answering the question was so profound. But in essence, this is some of your homework in being able to understand why Sussex. And yes, we could answer that, but I think if anything, it would be ideal for you to go and go look about what makes it interesting to you, because it could be interesting to me for various reasons that might not be the same as yours. Mubita, George is asking, apart from the academic prospects as why, can I incorporate other key things such as living standards, vibrant city, and so forth as to why I've chosen a certain university?
Absolutely. Do that. And away from just incorporating this for your interview, I would like you to, all of you are potential scholars, so you are going to come to the UK one way or another. Think about living standards when you're choosing these schools. I don't know what criteria you're using to choose the schools you want to come and study at, but really think about these things because they will affect your school. They will affect the way you study. They will affect every aspect of your life, especially your mental health, your ability to integrate. Think about them.
Yeah. It's not for the faint-hearted.
One of the reasons why I chose Brighton is because it's an international city. So you will find a lot of international students, and it's a multicultural environment. And so it's easy to integrate. It's easy to find people who are like you. Some cities in the UK are really not as international. And so you will find that to find people that are like you, it's a bit difficult, and you might not necessarily gel. You might not necessarily thrive. So think about these things, think about your quality of life as well as you come to study. I know you want to come to study in the UK, but think about your quality of life as well.
All right, so we have a lot more questions in the chat section, and some of them are so profound and really worth answering. However, Light and Mubita, it is your time to shine. It is the breakout room session. The reason I'm laughing, let me quickly make your co-host Mubita. And the reason I'm laughing is because when we were prepping for this session, we actually had to teach ourselves how to do breakout rooms. So this is our moment to shine. So in essence, what's going to happen now for the next 30 minutes is you will be taken into breakout rooms, so they will be much smaller. And that is really just a networking, get your questions through, put on your video, get as interactive as possible, because that's actually a workshop. It's where you can ask personal questions that do not pertain to the rest of the room and are specific to what you need. So we'll have 6 breakout rooms, which means that there'll be about 12 participants in each room, which is fine. So the speakers don't leave the room. Like, you can go ahead and create 6. So what's gonna happen is the icon will pop up saying join room, and then you'll just have to do so. But you will be automatically put in different rooms, so you don't get to choose which room you want to be in. So have fun in the workshop. Make sure that you ask your questions. Don't be shy, because this is your moment to make sure that you get what you need. So it's about what it is you need. So don't worry if the question might not, pertain to the rest of the participants in that specific room, because it's a workshop. So enjoy yourself. We'll be back here at about 10 minutes past 12, and then we will close. So just remember, you have to click join room, hey? So Light, go ahead. Oh, that was amazing. I think speaking to you guys in such a small room is a lot better than these big rooms. It's just a lot more intimate. It's just great. I really, really loved speaking to you on a more personal note. Stephen, is that you in an office? Because that's great for an interview. Like, yes, get it.
It looks really good, yeah. Even the angle of the camera is really perfect.
Dami already said, don't go. I need to remember not to speak English or Afrikaans, because this is a very multi-international platform, but I tend to want to break out into Oshwambo or Afrikaans. But yes, guys, we've come to the end of the session. Should you have any questions, refrain from emailing me. I don't intend to do this any further. But anyways, I think the speakers, you're welcome to put your social media feeds in the chat, so that if anybody wants to ask you a question, I think social media is a better platform. I will put my LinkedIn, because I'm very active on there. And then you can just drop me a message should you have any questions. One of the questions that came through in the sessions was, will we have mock interviews? And I'm like, we have carried you guys. This is as far as we go. The next time I see you is to prepare you for university, where we are like, take vitamin D supplements with you from your home country. It's lit. But no, this is as far as our journey goes. The next time I see you is when you're a Chevening scholar. And I really hope to see many of you back. I really look forward to, that process of like having seen you in this room and you finally have that final award letter. Hey,